Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video with me and my mom. Today we are going to be discussing a bit about sextortion. So I went through a sextortion case when I was 15 years old, and it ended up going to court, and I had to give my victim impact statement, which I recently uploaded to YouTube, so definitely go watch that if you're curious. And I read my statement when I was 17 in the courtroom in front of my perpetrator and a judge, and that was a really difficult experience that I went through, but I feel like it did shape who I am as a person, having gone through that along with everything else that I've experienced in my childhood and young adulthood. So but I'm curious to hear from you. When was the first time that you heard of sextortion?
When it happened, like
afterwards?
Afterwards. I don't think even when it happened to you, that was a term we were familiar with. I think you saw something, whether it was a documentary or something on YouTube. I think it was a documentary where you actually heard it called something specific.
Yeah, I mean, the people on my case, like on my criminal case, like some of them used the term, but it wasn't a very popular term at the time. So some of them didn't even know what it meant. And I really didn't fully understand the victimization that I experienced and the word for it until like really years later.
Yeah, no, I remember getting a phone call or a text or something from you that was like, you need to watch this. I didn't realize that there was a word for this, and there's actually a lot of information out there about it.
Yeah, I was like, this is exactly what happened to me.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because in the criminal justice system, it was blackmail and identity theft.
Those were the charges.
But then identity theft didn't go through because the other person involved in my case didn't want to press charges. So they charged him with a computer crime, along with the blackmail. So, but there were a lot of charges that he could have gotten charged with, but didn't because other people didn't want to come forward, which is totally understandable. I just happened to be the only one that really wanted to cooperate with the police in this regard and was comfortable sharing what happened to me in any capacity. So, and I don't blame the other victims in the case for not coming forward. But my perpetrator is free now, and it's a terrifying reality.
Well, it's unfortunate.
Yeah, because it didn't need to be that way. I think the criminal justice system altogether is extremely flawed. But that would be like a whole separate video.
Yes, that's not what we're discussing today.
But after like my sextortion case, what things did you feel like you learned from that as like a parent?
Yeah, so I think it's all tied back to social media, and it's a terrifying space for parents. And that's a sweeping statement, but I guess I feel like as someone who's not technically savvy, who is strictly on these platforms because my kids were, and I felt like I was monitoring by being on the platforms. I was not. I think that my generation, trying to parent a generation of kids that grew up with technology, with those kids being so much more savvy and fluent in the language of technology, generally speaking, it was not hard for your generation to keep from my generation what you were doing, where you were doing it.
Yeah.
And
well, and it wasn't even that I was trying to keep hidden anything, or I didn't have like a specific secret. It was just there's a lot of predators online, and I felt that I would be in danger, or my family would be in danger if I ever said anything.
You mean after the incident happened?
No, while it was happening.
Okay, yeah.
Because I was getting daily threats of my like well-being and everyone else's well-being, and
So yeah, the way the sextortion happened was you were coerced because you had shared some very personal information with this person online, thinking they were someone else, and then they used that as leverage.
Yeah, so if you haven't seen my sexual exploitation story video, definitely go watch that, because that touches more on the specifics of my story. And I also want to thank everyone for like who has gone and watched that, because the fact that over 5,000 people have watched that video is really touching to me, because I think this topic doesn't get nearly as much publicity and doesn't get acknowledged as much as it should, because this is still happening to kids as young as 8, which is just horrific. And if you don't know what sextortion is, basically it is the use of blackmail to get children to send nude images or videos for their own gain, and then distribute them. And I went through that experience for, I think it was 92 days, I believe.
Yeah.
For 92 days, I experienced that every single day. So when that's happening to you, you become so terrified, and you feel like there's nothing that you can do to stop the situation. But I get all into all of that information in my sextortion video. I've made many videos on sextortion, what it is, and how to prevent it, and to ensure that you don't become a victim of sextortion. But it really is something that sometimes is unavoidable, and I think no matter the safety features and everything that you share with your children, they're still at risk, because we live in the society that we do.
And I think it's really important for folks to understand that if you find yourself in this situation, no matter what the person who's sextorting you is saying or doing to try to manipulate you to stay silent and continue to share information, you have the ability to get out of it. It is possible to extract yourself from that situation, and I really think that that's where Skylar personally found a lot of strength in listening to other people's stories, and it's part of why you continue to post and share, is to let people know while these things might happen and they become part of your story, they don't have to define you. It is something that you can get yourself out of.
Yeah.
And that there's hope.
Yeah, and I think one of the hardest things for me for a long time was my perpetrator was consistently telling me, if you say anything to anyone, you're going to be the one that gets in trouble. You're going to go to jail. And threatening me, and basically saying that what I was doing was wrong, but I was being blackmailed into it. So I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was the victim in the crime, and that had no merit on the situation anyway. And I didn't feel completely confident in that until I talked to police, and they confirmed that that was in fact true, and I would not be in trouble no matter what.
But I would just really, really encourage anyone who's finding themselves in this situation to seek help, get support, and you are the victim, and there are resources out there, and there are people that can help you.
Yeah, well, and I think it's also really hard to realize oh, I am a victim of this crime. A lot of people don't want to be titled as a victim and don't want to see themselves in that light. And while that's understandable, I think in the way that we're using it is more, this happened to you. Yes. You did not bring it upon yourself.
And I do like the word survivor.
I do too.
I like the word survivor. Yeah.
But sextortion is a topic that's become a lot more well known at this point, but even still, like when I'm doing advocacy work and everything and I'm talking to people in the community, a lot of people still don't know what that word means. And it's kind of baffling to me in a way because it consumed so much of my life. That court case went on for 2 years. And I mean, this happened to me when I was a freshman in high school, and the court case didn't conclude until I was already in my freshman year of college. So it really was a lengthy criminal process.
Yeah, I mean, the criminal system takes time, and the reality was that the work that the police had to do to determine based on IP addresses and all who the perpetrator was, and like you said, your story's out there, but it takes time. It does take time, and there isn't always a clear resolution. I mean, they did figure out who your perpetrator was, and you were able to prosecute, and even though the sentence wasn't as gratifying for you as you would have liked it to be, the process of actually facing the person and them being held accountable for it
and I mean,
was pretty powerful.
A lot of people never find out who their perpetrator was. A lot of the times, sextortion cases, the perpetrator lives in a different country. And for me, my perpetrator ended up being in the same classroom that I was taught material in every day at school, but that's pretty rare. The majority of the time it is someone random online. So I feel that I did get extremely, lucky isn't the right word, but I feel blessed in a way that I was able to get some resolution and know who my perpetrator was and know, just to have some resolution, I guess.
Well, to face and confront. I mean, I think that gave you your voice, but there are other ways for that to happen as well. Sure. Do you have, I'm sure you've done it in some of your other videos, I'm struggling to recall it off the top of my head, but do you have resources for folks that are experiencing sextortion that maybe you can link to this?
I do. So my website, skylarbroshin.com, I write newsletters that I send out. So I try to send them out monthly. Sometimes, since I'm in grad school, it's a little bit difficult. But I have written ones on sextortion and put out resources. So I'll link my website so that you guys can go there and see the different resources that I have personally used, and then some that I have found are extremely helpful in my advocacy and helping other survivors. Thank you so much for listening today, and if you have any questions or you need assistance in any way and you don't feel comfortable reaching out to someone, you can always email me. My email is on my website, and reach out to someone, because you're not alone. So many people go through this horrible crime that is not talked about nearly enough, and I didn't think I would ever be here, like being able to sit next to you and like have like an honest conversation about sextortion, because it is a topic that is uncomfortable. It
is uncomfortable, and I guess I would just say to anybody who it's happening to, it's not your fault.
Yeah.
It's not your fault. Yeah. And the perpetrators are savvy, and they are manipulative and cunning, and they're 5 steps ahead of you. So it is a trap, and it is unfortunate, and it is not your fault.
Yeah. And all of the social media precautions and all that kind of stuff, well, I agree with some of it. I mean, social media is a great tool, and I have used it through my advocacy. And while I believe that like my sextortion happened because of social media, I think that it's
So-
really difficult to avoid social media in this day and age, and I don't think avoiding it completely is the answer. That's not what I'm saying, and I think awareness and educating yourself is the best thing to do, because unfortunately there are bad people out there. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well said.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening.
All right, bye.